candidate for the senior minister position. And so that requires that you dress to the nines, that you dress to impress, and that you really have this outer exterior that really says, I am a senior minister candidate. Spirit, on the other hand, said to me, I've given you a message to deliver to the people. Don't create any distraction that is going to take away from the message that I have given to you. So I listened to Spirit. And so for those of you who are not on video, I am wearing an open collared shirt, and don't ask me to stand up, okay? So anyway, I also want to acknowledge that June is Pride Month. And this is a time for celebration of the authenticity and the freedom of one's true self without discrimination. And isn't that what is being called for throughout the whole entire planet right now? So we stand with and recognize and honor the brave pioneers who have in the LGBTQI community who have fought for their freedom. And we stand together with them as they continue to fight for equity. And I have to say to you, I am beyond angry at our current administration and the actions that they are taking to continue to discredit members of the LGBTQ community, especially our trans brothers and sisters. It really pains my heart to see what is going on within the leadership in our administration. I honor and celebrate our LGBTQI community by knowing the truth of wholeness and perfection for each one as a complete expression of spirit. And this leads into our topic this morning, which is mindful intentions. And I want to start out with a shout out and a big thank you to Reverend Kathy Sharma, who was the speaker last week and laid a wonderful foundation that creates a structure for us to continue the ongoing conversation about the two worldwide pandemics that are facing us right now. And that is the ongoing effects of COVID-19, excuse me, and the protest against racism, which we are facing at the same time. My intention today is to expand this foundation that Reverend Kathy laid for us as we emerge through these times of uncertainty, doubt, fear, mistrust, questioning, conspiracy theories, and everything else that has become a source of mass distraction from the true nature of our spiritual being. And within my own conversation, I am changing the phrase from times of uncertainty to times of enhancement to what we know. As people of faith, we are called to a deeper awareness to stand for the spiritual truths that we know. The call is to recognize that there are things in the life experience that are now complete, must be released in order for us to make way for the new that is emerging. Visualize with me, if you will, that we're physically together in community, sitting in circle. There are no physical barriers between us. And in the center of the circle is this large empty container, ready to receive all that is complete, all that has kept us from having those authentic and yet hard conversations, identifying the unconsciousness and the ever persistent racial, gender, and social injustice biases that are implicit within our country. Take a breath on that one. Take a breath and just let that sink in. Mindful intentions that we're called to are inviting us to commit to removing the mask and the barriers of separation. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, says that we demonstrate from the tendency of our thoughts. And in Science of Mind, we use the term demonstrations to describe the results of our affirmations, our spiritual work, our affirmative prayers, our spiritual mind treatments. The result of those we see when we have set into motion through the law of mind what appears in form. And let me offer this in another way. The way that often we teach the creative process to the youngsters in youth church is the illustration of seed, soil, and plant. Many of you may be familiar with this illustration. So the seed is the thought that begins in our mind. And we plant the seed into the fertile soil. And the seed is nurtured and is fertilized, it grows, it takes everything that it requires from the nourishment from that soil that it is planted in. And then the end result is the plant, and that is the demonstration. And so now is the time for us to reshift the demonstrations and to say no more to those unwanted demonstrations. We are ready. I truly believe that we are ready to release. We're truly ready to release those old thoughts, those old ideas, and those old things that are no longer useful to us. And we're willing to create new mindful intentions. But I must forewarn you, change is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. And so before diving into these hard conversations, I just encourage each one of us to create intentional time, even if you have to calendar in the time for radical self-love, radical self-care, radical self-forgiveness. This is where our work begins. The hard conversations that I am intentionally referring to as conversations plural are those conversations we are afraid to have because they require letting go of the familiar, and it's scary. And I encourage you to be open to the surprising revelations and the ahas that result from the letting go. I also want you to know that this is not a one-time feel-good catharsis conversation that allows us to say the work is done. I'm going to say that again. This is not a one-time feel-good catharsis conversation that allows us to say the work is done. Take a breath on that. Breathe in that. Breathe in that. I share with you an article that appeared in the June 4th, 2020 edition of Elephant Journal, and is titled, I Am Black. This is what I need and what I don't from white allies. And the article is written by Nicole Cameron. And she offers these ideas for the hard conversations that we're to ask. Ask the questions that we've been too scared to ask. Ask the questions that we've been uninterested in asking. Ask the questions that we have been unconsciously ignorant to ask. Ask the questions that make your skin crawl. Ask the questions that make you want to hide. Ask the questions that push you to confront the way you were raised and how you've chosen to show up in the world up until now. Asking these questions, and this is only a beginning, but asking these questions requires sitting in the yuck, because the yuck is going to come up. To have the honest conversations and the transparent conversations requires that we be vulnerable, and most of all, that we be willing to build trust. Take another breath. This is one of those talks this morning where the charge of a minister is to afflict the comfortable. One of our guiding principles in science of mind is found in what we believe, also known as our Declaration of Principles. And for those of you who may be first-time guests or new to the philosophy, our Declaration of Principles are our principles of faith, our guiding statements, if you will. And one of the statements says, we believe the ultimate goal of life is to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be achieved by all. This goal is what's in front of us now. I believe this goal is possible. However, it requires a commitment to doing the work, to doing our own inner work, and then to be and engage in those uncomfortable conversations. So I ask, if you're willing to do the work, get on board, come along, let's do this together. Let's see where this train is going to take us. Reverend Kathy also shared some outstanding resources last week, and they were placed in the e-newsletter. And today I am offering an additional resource it's a statement that was released by our Centers for Spiritual Living, titled Racism in the United States. And this was provided by our spiritual leader, Reverend Dr. Edward Viljoen. And this was a statement that was released on June 3rd of this year, 2020. I will not read it here. I've asked Bobby to post it in the e-newsletter. And if you're not on the distribution for the e-newsletter, please visit the center's website, www.montereycsl.org, and sign up for the e-newsletter. There's a lot of wonderful information about the center that is contained in there. I really enjoy reading it. If you're on Facebook, you can also go to Center for Spiritual Living Spiritual Leader page. That's a lot to say. Center for Spiritual Living Spiritual Leader page. This is Dr. Edwards' page, and you will find the post there. It's dated June 3rd of 2020. And so as we read through the information that Reverend Kathy provided, as we read through the Center for Spiritual Living statement on racism in the United States, as we listen to those suggestions for the hard questions that we are to ask, and all of the other resources that are being provided for us, I ask you to ask yourself the following questions. Do I believe this? This is where the honesty and the transparency with ourselves comes into play. Do I believe this? Does this speak to my core values? Is this in alignment with what I believe and what I practice? What am I being called to change about myself? And what else is wanting to emerge from within me now? And then listen. Listen to what inner guidance is leading us to know, to be, and to do. And then following inner guidance, set this new intention in life and allow the answers to guide you into co-creating the new normal that is emerging. As people of faith, as science of mind, new thought, truth seekers, and truth knowers, we can no longer engage in spiritual bypass, pretending that a period, a punctuation mark period, as has been practiced in the past, is going to be placed at the end of the protests sparked by the deaths of Black Americans, members of our trans community, and other people of color. We can no longer engage in spiritual bypass that allows police brutality to continue to be justified by a complicit system of injustice. We can no longer engage in spiritual bypass that says COVID-19 and the family of viruses it contains will magically subside and everything will go back to normal. We can no longer engage in spiritual bypass and say that it's okay to stand by and not hold corporations accountable for the nice sounding statements that are being released, knowing that past experience has shown that they have not been embodied, practiced, and implemented. And we definitely can no longer engage in spiritual bypass that allows us to pretend that life will resume as it once was. No more. It tain't so. It tain't so. For those of us who have been around Science of Mind for a while, we may be familiar with the expression tain't so. For those of you who may be new, tain't so is an expression that is attributed to one of our longtime master spiritual practitioners and teachers. And the story is that she would sit in a rocking chair, and as clients would come to her and begin to talk about what was going on in their lives, whenever they would make a statement that did not reveal the true nature of God expressing as the individual, she would merely say, "Tain't so. Tain't so." She didn't go into any long dialogue and theoretical spiritual dialogue, spiritual teaching, a class on mastermind, a class on self-mastery. She just merely said, "Tain't so. Tain't so." And so this is our opportunity to say, "Tain't so," to those things that have occurred in the past that have separated us from the true nature of our being as creations of spirit, as being in one with spirit. So we get to say, "Tain't so" to the yuck. And we affirm that a new normal is emerging. We can say, "I am a co-creator of the new normal." Be with the places where the yuck shows up. The song that I had asked Bobby to share with us is one of my favorites by Eddie Watkins. It says, "I am the place where God shows up." So allow that yuck to show up and know that in the yuck is that invitation to each one of us to be the place where God shows up, because that is the place where we live, move, and have our being. Resist the temptation to compare your story with another's story. You know, sometimes in conversations, it's easy to play what I call the one-upsmanship pity party. "Oh, you think your story is full of woe. Let me tell you about my experience." I heard someone recently say that comparison is the thief of compassion. Comparison is the thief of compassion. As we're engaging in the hard conversations, as we're being vulnerable, as we're being authentic, as we're being transparent and sharing our stories, we're called to listen with compassion, to listen with the ear of understanding and not the ear to respond. In The Power of Intention, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, "You get what you intend to create by being in harmony with the power of your intention, which is responsible for all of creation." Mindful intentions create a clear path for a definite and measurable demonstration of faith. Our intentions must be nurtured with awareness, with faith, and with practice. And as I wrap this up and attempt to put a little bow on the package, or of a larger bow, I invite us to keep this in mind, that the goal of community is to make sure that each member of the community is heard and is properly given and is properly giving into the world. And this is from a powerful African mystic who has now joined the ancestors, Sobunfu Some. We have an opportunity to truly create the beloved community that so many speak of. We have spiritual tools for our personal and global transformation. We use these tools, our affirmations, our spiritual mind treatments, our prayers, our meditation. I like to refer to it as our spiritual ATM card, our affirmations, our treatments, and our meditations. We use these to train our minds and to actualize the activities of the power that are already within us. And so I ask you this morning, what mindful intentions are you setting today, this week, this month, and for your life? A recent author that I recently discovered by the name of Octavia Rahim reminds us, remember who and what anchors your soul. And then Dr. Ernest Holmes reminds us in this thing called you, when the time comes that nothing goes forth from you other than that which you would be glad to have returned, then you will have reached your heaven. And so I say to all of us this morning that we are here to experience heaven on earth. And this is the time for us as family, as friends, as coworkers, as partners, as community, to truly create the new norm, to truly create the beloved community. Let us pray together. Father, Mother God, infinite intelligence, creator of all that there is, how good it is to be in the presence of community, how good it is to be in the presence of spiritual beings of like mind on this journey of awakening. How good it is to be in the presence of those who have stuck with us through the day, have stuck with us through these turbulent times, and have said, I am the place where God shows up. And so I, Robert, speak my word for myself, and I speak my word for and on behalf of the beloved community, declaring that all is well. Everything is as it should be. The discomfort, the discord, the turbulence, everything is as it should be. And I say that because in order to gain an understanding, we have to get under the situation. And so we're called to now go underneath what it is that we knew and to examine it from a new perspective. And to say, this no longer has worked. And the demonstrations, the protest, everything that is being played out in front of us in the media now is reminding us that something new is emerging. And we as spiritual beings on this cutting edge of the spiritual technology we have known as the science of mind, known as new thought, known as thought innovators and speakers that are emerging all around. We have the gift of the creative intelligence to create the new normal. And so what I see emerging out of this is something that is beautiful, something that embraces harmony and peace and joy and love. Most of all, love for ourselves, love for each other, love for the planet, love for everything that there is. And knowing this to be a possibility in my lifetime, in our lifetimes, I declare it good and very good. I speak my word of blessing for the families who are going through the transitions of life, especially the transitions of the loss of the physical presence of loved ones. And knowing that within each individual's heart lives the memory of that individual. And so I am calling forth those memories to bring a smile to the heart and to the entire being of each one that is going through the transition known as physical death. I also speak a word of blessing for the transitions that each one is going through in their own life. You know what it is. I don't have the voice to name all of the individual experiences. It is not mine to know. But rest assured that God knows, Spirit knows. And this energy, this loving essence, this creative intelligence, this balm in Gilead that the scripture refers to, that healing balm is healing the soul right here and right now. I bless gatherings like this, where people of faith are coming together, practicing the principles of their belief, practicing the truth principles, recognizing that God is all that there is. I honor and respect the many paths. Recently, in one of our global prayer sessions with our spiritual leader, Dr. Edward, and our field leader, Dr. Sharon, Dr. Edward shared from Living the Science of Mind, the 99 names for God. And these are just the names for God that are expressed in our Science of Mind philosophy. And I'm knowing that in all spiritual traditions, there are 99 plus names for this highest idea of creator. So as we honor and recognize the multiple 99 names for this creative intelligence, just imagine the unity and the harmony that can take place. And we get to call that forth right here and right now. And so in deep, deep gratitude for this and so much more, then I have words at my command right now to speak into this place. I give thanks. I give thanks knowing that the word spoken has set a new cause in motion. And I give thanks in releasing this word into the law, which only says yes. And so in deep, deep gratitude, I accept the demonstrations that are now appearing. And so I just allow all of this to be. And I invite you to say with me as we affirm it, and so it is. Thank you.